Thank you very much, everyone. Obviously, we are all devastated by the news of this appalling shooting in Tumbler Ridge. The fact that this took place at a secondary school, it makes it even more tragic. As a father, I can't even imagine the phone calls that parents might have received. I can't imagine the heartache and hell that they're living through at this moment. This is a time for all Canadians to unite, to support the families and the community at large. We'll be in touch with the Prime Minister and the other parties later today to offer all of our support to work together and help the community in any way we can in this terrible time. I encourage all Canadians to pray for the community and pray for the family as we go forward and take the necessary steps to support them. Thank you very much.
It's obviously a very difficult day for the nation. This morning, parents, grandparents, sisters, brothers in Tumbler Ridge will wake up without someone they love. The nation mourns with you. Canada stands by you. I want to thank and pass on a number of world leaders who've reached out directly to me in solidarity and compassion. France, United Kingdom, His Majesty himself, Norway, Finland, India, United Arab Emirates, many others. The world is with you. I have spoken to Premier Eby. Minister of Public Safety has been engaged, as have many Canadian officials over the evening. Minister of Public Safety is en route to British Columbia. He and the Premier will be visiting the community. All assistance, obviously, will be offered. We thank the first responders, the teachers, the staff, the residents, for everything that they've done in this terrible situation.
Well, thank you very much. Well, I've had limited ability at this point to talk to anybody in authority, but I did have the chance to speak with officials in the Minister of Public Safety of British Columbia, Minister Krieger's office last night, who actually reached out to me while it was still an active shooting. And so I was advised that there was, an event going on. At that point, we didn't know yet what had occurred, other than there was a shooter in a school. But it does give me the opportunity to also, I think, express our gratitude to the first responders, not only I believe it was the RCMP, but also paramedics and ambulance drivers and hospital and healthcare workers who also were engaged in what was a dangerous and obviously very traumatic situation. So I think now we're just starting to get the details. Last I heard there were some 10 people dead and 25 injured, I think. And I've heard that the alleged shooter has likely taken their own life. So I think that's all we know at this point. And really, there'll be lots of time in the days ahead to parse what happened. At this point, I think the main thing is we just have to come together as a country and express our deep condolences and grief to all those who are suffering, and to offer whatever help might be needed in that community at this point in time.
I rarely agree so wholeheartedly with the Premier of British Columbia, David Eby, but it was as if he was reading my mind when I read that the Premier had said, you read these things and you think they happen somewhere else. They don't happen here. And to the extent that we know anything, we don't know much right now. And I've been also watching closely and keeping in touch with the people I know who live. It's a very remote community. If for people in the media who don't know, it's roughly 2,000 people live there. Tumbler Ridge wouldn't exist if it wasn't for a metallurgical coal mine that was started there long ago. It shut down briefly. It recently reopened. For the people in that community, I think of when they had just a few years ago, just really high unemployment as the mine closed. The town was full of hope. It's incomprehensible, which means all we can say is that we send deepest condolences as to support and federal support. I'm sure first responders are going to need a lot of support emotionally for what they have gone through, being the first to show up to open the school doors. It's unspeakable. It's a terrible tragedy, and we mourn with those who've lost so much.
Our hearts, our thoughts, and our prayers are with the people of Tumbler Ridge, the families of the innocent lives that were lost. It was very difficult to think of anything else, and of course, as we move into National Kindness Week, we think about love. Love as an action, love for one another, and that true spirit of caring without expecting anything else in return. I'm deeply thankful for our Prime Minister's words last night, and I'm truly, truly thankful for the first responders that are working around the clock to support families and to really help the community heal. So I think it's more important than ever that we come together as a country, as a government, as communities across Canada, and really stand for unity in these difficult, difficult times. Thank you.
Like you, I am just learning about the horror of the tragedy that unfolded in Tumbler Ridge this evening over the course of the day. This is a devastating and unimaginable tragedy. We can't imagine what the community is going through, but I know it's causing us all to hug our kids a little bit tighter tonight. I'm just out of an update with RCMP leadership, Dwayne McDonald. I want to thank him for being available this evening, and a conversation with the Prime Minister about this terrible tragedy. Here's the latest information that we have. I understand that there are 10 people in total who are dead, 2 different sites. 8 of the people who died as a result of the shootings were at the school, including an individual we understand is the suspected shooter, who is believed to have died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. There are about 25 people who have been triaged by health authorities with various physical injuries, some profoundly serious, and some more minor injuries. Right now, information is very limited as police do their work, and the RCMP has asked for patience as they work through methodically to ensure that they are supporting families and getting to the bottom of what happened today. I'd like to take this opportunity to ask British Columbians, to ask all Canadians, to wrap the people of Tumbler Ridge, wrap these families with love. Not just tonight, but tomorrow and into the future. This is something that will reverberate for years to come. As British Columbians, I know that one of the things we do best is look after each other, and I'm asking British Columbians to look after the people of Tumbler Ridge tonight. For our government's role, we'll make sure that the resources are there for the community. They're already being deployed on the site, and I'd like to ask the Public Safety Minister to provide you an update on.
A police-initiated public alert was issued as officers responded. The alert was canceled at around 5:30 p.m. once police determined there was no outstanding suspects and no ongoing threat to the public. As part of the initial response, officers entered the school to locate the source of the threat. During their search, police located multiple victims. The individual believed to be the shooter was also found deceased from what appears to be a self-inflicted injury. 6 additional people, not including the suspect, were found deceased inside the school. 2 victims were airlifted to hospital with serious or life-threatening injuries, and a 3rd victim died being transported. All remaining students and staff have been safely evacuated, which was about 100 people. Police are working closely with the school district to support a coordinated reunification process for families. Approximately 25 others are being assessed and treated at the local medical center for non-life-threatening injuries. As the investigation progressed, officers identified a secondary location believed to be connected to the incident. 2 additional victims were located deceased inside a residence. Police are conducting further searches of other homes and properties to determine whether anyone else may be injured or otherwise linked to today's events. Additional RCMP resources have been additional RCMP resources have been deployed to support both the response and the investigation, including frontline officers, the emergency response team, BC RCMP Major Crimes, and Victim Services. We would also like to extend our sincere thanks to our partners at BC Emergency Health Services and the Tumbler Ridge Fire Department, as well as the local medical center for their critical support throughout this incident. BC RCMP Major Crimes has assumed conduct of the investigation and is working to determine the full circumstances surrounding this incident. We are not in a place now to be able to understand why and what may have motivated this tragedy. This was a rapidly evolving and dynamic situation, and the swift cooperation from the school, first responders, and the community played a critical role in our response. Our thoughts are with the families, loved ones, and all those impacted by this tragic incident. This has been an incredibly difficult and emotional day for our community, and we are grateful for the cooperation shown as officers continue their work to advance the investigation. I'd like to personally take a few minutes to recognize our community, our provincial leaders, our emergency services partners, and our communities across the north, as well as our partners who conduct businesses in our communities. I've connected with many of you, the RCMP members involved, our families, and our communities are truly grateful and appreciative of your efforts to support us.
It is the main crime scene where police say 7 lives were lost and the lone suspect was found with a self-inflicted injury. Now, so much is still uncertain in these hours following what, as you mentioned, what is one of the worst mass shootings in this country's history, including a possible motive. Now, 2 more bodies were found at a home that police believe was linked to the shooting, but it has not yet been revealed how. Now, investigators say they're not in a place right now to understand either, again, what may have motivated the suspect to commit what is now the 3rd deadliest shooting in this country's history. Prime Minister Mark Carney stopping to speak with reporters earlier this hour. He became visibly emotional, just reflecting on the horror of this tragedy. Have a listen.
It's obviously a very difficult day for the nation. This morning, parents, grandparents, sisters, brothers in Tumbler Ridge will wake up without someone they love. The nation mourns with you. Canada stands by you.
Now, this is a small community in the northeastern part of BC that sits in the shadows of the Rocky Mountains.
Hi there, Darian, and your mother, Shelley. I'm really, what a terrible thing to meet you like this. And I'm really sorry that we have to have this conversation. And I know it sounds trite to say, I hope you're okay, but I can't imagine what you've been through, Darian. What's your sense of, like, do you have any sense of what happened? Or can you tell us where you were?
Yeah, I can. So, I was just getting off my spare block and I was in the mechanics classroom preparing to do some work on my car when the alarm went off that I'd never heard before. And our principal goes throughout the halls and she's saying, people close your doors, lock down, stuff like that. I thought it was a secure and hold and something like that at first. But once things started circulating, we realized how serious it really was. So we all barricaded up the doors with some iron tables and sat in that room for around 2 hours. I was on my phone with my mother the entire time. And about 2 hours and 30 minutes passed when we went onto lockdown. Our CMP got in. We're telling everyone to put their hands up, and we were all escorted out of the building and sent towards the community center where I met up with her in person.
And in that whole time, Darian, did you hear anything?
No, I did not. Where I believe the incident occurred, which is on the far right wing of the school, but it could be wrong, was far away because I was on the far left wing of the school. So I did not hear anything occur. I only heard a few things from classmates that they may have heard possible gunshots when they were driving in a truck to get it repaired.
Love you, Lexi. Oh, and fly high, my angel.
A 9-year-old's goodbye to her big sister. Lexi Blackwood took her own life. She was 12 years old.
She was so confident until she started facing harassment and bullying on a daily basis when she entered middle school, which basically chipped away her confidence until it was pretty well zero. And here we are today, after her passing a month ago.
Last October, Blackwood confided in her parents about alleged bullying and relentless verbal harassment targeting her appearance.
No one she knew in her classroom didn't even know these people. Constantly putting her down, calling her names.
The family say they contacted the school and were sent to a youth counseling center. They question why the focus was on her mental health rather than the alleged bullying and harassment. In a statement, Central Okanagan Public Schools extended its sympathy to the family as they cope with this unimaginable loss, but went on to say they cannot comment on the specific case and that they align with the provincial safety education framework.
We felt that her experience was maybe not taken as serious as it should have been.
Here they had a monitor in the hall for a few days, when our little Lexi wasn't even in the hallway anyway because they had her out 5 minutes early.
Turn to George Rowe, who is the pastor at the Tumbler Ridge Baptist Church. He is in Tumbler Ridge. George, it is a very early morning. I would say good morning to you, other than the circumstances.
Good morning to you, David.
How are you?
It's a big question. Just dealing with it, trying to cope with it. It's been a restless night for sure. And we'll get through this.
George, we've been showing people the geography of the community and how everything happened in such a small triangle almost. The secondary school is in one place, the health center next door, and the community center right in behind the high school. I understand you were at that community center as families were gathering to find out anything about their loved ones. What was it like inside that building?
It was a situation that you really never want to face again. Of course, after the lockdown had been lifted, I left my house to go over, and when I walked in, the sight of what I saw was devastating. Many parents just waiting for the news on whether their child had survived the shooting or not. And while the medical people were doing all they could in the background with those who were injured, the RCMP and their staff were with the parents trying to explain, but could not release the information as to whether their child had survived or not. And that in itself was absolutely heartbreaking. And several hours had passed since the shooting, so you can imagine, or at least try to imagine.
I rarely agree so wholeheartedly with the Premier of British Columbia, David Eby, but it was as if he was reading my mind when I read that the Premier had said, you read these things and you think they happen somewhere else. They don't happen here. And to the extent that we know anything, we don't know much right now. And I've been also watching closely and keeping in touch with the people I know who live it. It's a very remote community. If for people in the media who don't know, I mean, it's roughly 2,000 people live there. Tumbler Ridge wouldn't exist if it wasn't for a metallurgical coal mine that was started there long ago. It shut down briefly. It recently reopened. For the people in that community, I think of when they had just a few years ago, just really high unemployment as the mine closed. The town was full of hope. It's incomprehensible, which means all we can say is that we send deepest condolences as to support and federal support. I'm sure first responders are going to need a lot of support emotionally for what they have gone through, being the first to show up to open the school doors. It's unspeakable. It's a terrible tragedy, and we mourn with those who've lost.
We have breaking news that we want to share with you that's just into our newsroom. CTV News has confirmed the identity of the suspect behind the Tumbler Ridge mass shooting. Jesse Strang is the name of the suspect. That's all the information that we know, at least at this point. 10 people, again, were killed, again, including that suspected shooter. 25 others have been injured and have been wounded, according to police. We're going to have more on the shooter's identity and what we know, too, as well as the victims, as that information becomes available. Again, the identity of the shooter has been revealed as Jesse Strang. That's, again, all the information we know at this point. We will continue to bring you.
Turn now to CTV's Jeremy Sharon. He's live for us in Ottawa. Jeremy, Tumbler Ridge is a small community, population 2,400 in the foothills of the Rockies. Everyone will be touched by this tragedy. What more do we know?
Yeah, look, absolutely, Marcia. We don't know much at this point, but to your point, this is a very small community, about 2,400 people. We're talking about a secondary school, so students between grade 7 and grade 12. It is likely that, many people know each other in this community, as you've touched on, a very small community. But we don't know much yet. Police at this point have said that they're not able at this point to understand the motive, to say, how this happened or why this happened, what the motivation was. As you've touched on, we know that 6 people were found dead in the school, plus the shooter. 1 other person died on the way to the hospital. 2 other people were found dead at a home away from the school that police believe was connected. 2 people airlifted to hospital, and then about 25 people treated for non-life-threatening injuries separately. So this is something that has impacted this community in a very large way. A small community that is going to be looking.
All right, gang. So that's enough of that. We're kind of informed as much as we can be. We're going to jump over to the regular show. I cover Canadian federal politics. This isn't really that, but it's a big headline. Oh my God, the devastation. Anyhow, we do this show about Canadian federal politics, so we're going to get into that right now.
Mr.
I
Bailey,
think you'll enjoy it. Jump in the chat room. We've got a great group.
sharing with Miss Conans. So you're going to split 6 minutes into 3-3. Go ahead.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Bailey, start.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you please explain to me how you deal with expired stock? Is it a common practice to be sharing it with a health institution, or does it go to an online auction?
Thank you for the question, Madam President. We divest of surplus, expired, or obsolete medical countermeasures as part of our routine life cycle management and in compliance with Treasury Board policies and directives. So our first attempt is to transfer to another federal department before the product expires and to provinces and territories. And then we consider sale followed by donation. As a last resort, we look at recycling and disposal options. Once expired, medical devices cannot be deployed and are recycled or disposed of in compliance with Health Canada regulations and Treasury Board's policies and directives.
Thank you. With the sheer cost of these vials, we're talking over $2,000 a vial. Why wouldn't these fridges have a locking mechanism, being a medical grade latch lock? Is that something that's been explored? Especially when you talk about foreign actors, possibly a mischievous employee. I'm wondering if this has been considered that there should be locks on these fridges.
We have been looking at all options, and we have a whole series of refrigerators and freezers that are in use within the National Emergency Strategic Stockpile. In terms of the employees who have access to the nest, it is restricted. There are certain security requirements that are required to be able to enter the facility, and anyone entering the facility, there's a record of who is in the facility at what time and on what date. So there are very careful measures that are put in place.
But a fridge door can be left open. I'm referring to why isn't there a locking mechanism on the fridge? When you go into a hospital, they don't just leave fridges that you can just open. They are locked. There's a master key. So I'm indicating to you, why didn't that happen?
Thank you for the question. So as Ms. Hamzawi alluded to, there's a layered security protocol, physical security. So there's graded layers of security to access not just our facility locations, but also the area of our holdings where drug medical countermeasures are held. So there's already a layered and graded facility.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it over
requirement.
to Ms. Combs now. Thank you. 3 minutes.
John, Mr. Bailey,
Dead.
nicely done.
Very
good. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So I guess in a few sentences, how will you prevent this from happening again?
So this was a one-time incident. It has not occurred again. It is not a regular occurrence. We've looked back over the record. We couldn't actually identify another time where this had occurred. There were a number of factors at play in terms of this particular instance. An investigation was undertaken, and we've looked at, we have developed an action plan, which is largely complete in terms of what has not been completed, includes an interim modernized temperature monitoring system. We have interim measures now in place in terms of how we review and monitor the temperature, but temperature in these.
I was just, excuse me, just quickly. It wasn't up to a modernized standard. We weren't at. I mean, you would think that we would be using the most modern equipment to begin with for something this important to Canadians.
So absolutely, we are using modernized equipment, but in terms of our updated standard operating procedures, we're adding, we're in belts and suspenders and another layer of belts and suspenders just to make sure that we avoid any replication in the future.
Okay, Ms. Hamwazi, when you have, or anyone who would like to answer this, when you have a $20 million loss, how is there no one held accountable? You mentioned that publicly. I mean, it's not that we have to publicly punish, but how is no one held accountable?
So through the review process, there was no single individual for whom a reprimand was warranted. There were a number of factors that were at play, including adjustments that were required to some of our standard operating procedures. So no determination was made at the time based on that.
Just my final
plan,
question.
and just to note that I look forward to the Auditor General's report on this in terms of her findings and any further recommendations she may have for us to
My
pursue.
final question would be, can Canadians feel secure in this stockpile now? Can they be secure that if something happens, some emergency happens, that we are ready for them?
Yes, is my short answer. Before the pandemic, we had 34 employees, about 100 employees now. We, at the time, were investing $5 million per year. Before the pandemic, we are now, this year, to over $220 million in a much more expanded suite of medical countermeasures to be ready for any possible threat that the country could face, for which we are concerned in terms of the risk assessment that we undertake with our colleagues in the security family.
It's great to be able to have an opportunity to ask the minister in regards to red tape reduction. I'm very excited, especially I think in the current situation that we find ourselves, where we are going through the worst bankruptcy rates since the last financial crisis. And actually in BC, bankruptcies are up at 10%. And when I meet small and medium-sized business, I hear things like this. There's too much paperwork, there's slow approvals, there's high compliance costs. They can't even afford their payroll and rent. So what I'm wondering is if you could explain to me how giving this new exemption, these sandbox exemptions, would make life easier for small and medium-sized businesses. I hear things.
Oui, d'abord, il faut regarder l'effort de
We need
réduction.
to look at the red tape reduction effort as a whole. If I look at our department, I'm just hoping we can hear this new exemption, does it automatically simplify forms for small and medium-sized businesses? I understand it does for big, but how about for small and medium?
Mais c'est parce que vous prenez une mesure dans le
You're
budget.
taking one measure from the budget, but there are many others. The effort to reduce paperwork is not limited to the sandbox.
One, and so because we see this tragedy happening with bankruptcies, would it automatically shorten approval times for small and medium-sized businesses? I get it that it does it for some of these big guys, but for small and
Mais pas
medium-sized.
seulement, écoutez, moi, ce qu'on
Not
vise.
only, look, what we're trying to do with this is increase the speed of innovation, where sometimes the regulatory framework stalls innovation. One example, that it could, depending on the sector. I don't know if it will help my barber, but it could help a small fintech company that wants to accelerate payment systems using digital assets like stablecoin or other.
Is it easier for a larger organization with a legal team to use than it would be for a small, like you say, a startup? Would you require a legal team?
Non, ma compréhension, c'est que non, ça peut très bien aider des petites
Our intention is that small startups could innovate, and that's what we've seen in countries that have that type of instrument, regulatory frameworks.
Small and medium-sized, the kinds that I have, like 10% of bankruptcy in British Columbia. Will it apply to them?
C'est-à-dire que le principe dont on parle,
The principle we're talking about, the regulatory sandboxes, if you look at Germany, France, the UK, where it's done, the EU, Brazil, it's not necessarily for one specific sector. It's not for one broad sector. It's sectors where the regulatory framework stalls innovation.
Small and
Mais je
medium-sized
pense que oui,
businesses.
la réponse c'est oui, ça peut
I think so.
certainement
The answer is yes. It can certainly help SMEs.
I understand, and I could be wrong, that the only concrete red tape measure in the BIA, red tape reduction measure, is the creation of these exemptions for these big businesses. There's no other one, just that one. The rest is going to be sometime in the future in another budget. We just get this one. When we see bankruptcies at such high levels right now, when we need, small businesses really need some relief, and all we see is just this one, this fancy exemption for big, elite, large companies that are going to be doing who knows what.
Non, pas du tout. Quand on regarde, par
No,
exemple,
not at
les-
all. When we look at SHRED, the tax credits for scientific research and experimental development, I can tell you, you can come to Quebec and see how many SMEs are benefiting from those tax credits. We're simplifying, drastically simplifying.
These fancy exemptions that they put in place.
Mais c'est pas le seul. Je veux dire, vous prenez
It's
un
not the only
élément.
one. You're taking one element of a big bill.
Mais, mais regardez les changements
Yes,
qu'on
but
fait.
look at the changes we're making to these tax credits to simplify them for entrepreneurs. And this is the feedback we've received from the Council of Canadian Innovators. They're telling us that we need to change how those tax credits are given to give predictability to businesses and increase the cap.
On le fixe?
Yes, we are fixing it. Yes, yes.
What my concern is these very small companies who really don't have.
In Canadian federal politics, the Canucks are represented by two separate yet unequal groups: the globalists who sold out and the opposition trying to salvage a country. These are their stories.
First, for 6 minutes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I am here to fight for the Indian Head Research Farm, facility that employs approximately 30 people full-time and many, many more during summer months and part-time workers. There's clearly no industry group that thinks that this is a good idea to shut this facility down. I mean, that has become overwhelmingly apparent. So I'd like to get right into some detailed questions. Can you tell me what you expect, what the department claims it will save from shutting down the Indian Head Research Center, research firm?
Yes, I do have. I have the number, and I don't know if you have it immediately in front of you. I know I do have it in another document of our operational costs. If you can just allow me one moment to bring that up, but I don't know if you have it handy.
Yeah, total operating cost last year for Indian Head was $3.8 million. But just want to caution that there's some relocation of science. There's some costs that we will continue to incur because, as you probably know, the divestiture of such a site will take years. So 3.8 million is the total operating costs.
3.8 million operating costs. Did you look at any kind of assessment for how potentially upgrading key pieces of equipment or infrastructure at the site could result in year-over-year savings? For example, if you replace a heating system, you don't have to repair it as often. Was any kind of assessment done at the centre to look for ways of reducing operating costs without closing down the farm?
Thank you, Chair. With regard to the member's question, I think even if we were to reduce our operating costs at that specific site, there would still be savings to be gained by seeking to do further consolidation, including moving some of this work to Saskatoon. And in fact, I will note that there were 2 research scientists on site at Indian Head, and one of them will in fact be moving to our R&D center in Saskatoon.
Was that a no? That there was no assessment done to see if costs could have been reduced while maintaining the overall viability of the site?
I don't think the overall viability of the site becomes a matter of if you can further invest. The answer is we've decided that the greatest level of savings and efficiency could come by consolidating our efforts elsewhere.
Some of the research says in the briefing note will be moved to, for example, Outlook, Saskatchewan. Are you aware of the difference in soil conditions between Indian Head and Outlook, Saskatchewan?
Chair, we are aware that there are some variations in soil from place to place, but we are convinced that we can continue our science capacity even in slight variations in soil conditions. I would also note that we fund science that is done by others that can continue to be focused in specific areas.
It's not just slight variances. We're talking about major differences in the quality of soil, the pH balance, and especially the moisture. I mean, Indian Head is in a very, very special place in Saskatchewan. It is Class 1 soil. It consistently outperforms other regions on a consistent basis in terms of moisture. And the reason why that's important is because when you're doing multi-year studies on seed varieties and yields and responses to various conditions, having that kind of stability, knowing that you won't have to worry about a drought in year 3 or an early frost in year 5. That's the type of benefit that having a site like Indian Head has. And I have spoken to so many people. Nobody believes that you can replicate those types of conditions over multi-year periods at Outlook. So was there any kind of assessment in terms of the scientific integrity that will be lost by merging sites from relocating research from Indian Head to a place like Outlook?
I'll ask my colleague Andrew if he wants to add anything. But Mr. Chair, I will say we have sought to find these savings in a way that is most consistent with maximizing our science capacity and remaining it in place. And also, where there are specific issues, we will be continuing to look with our partners and others to do research. But Andrew, if you have anything to add, please.
Yes, I mean, every site does offer their unique properties, but we will still maintain 4 different sites across Saskatchewan, and we believe that can generate sufficient diversity to continue our programs.
I've got a couple of minutes left, so I'll have to move very quickly. It looks like there will have to be capital investments at places like Outlook to create more storage facilities. Have you done any kind of assessment about the extra cost that you'll incur by this relocation? Because if we're talking about a savings of $3.8 million, if you have to spend millions more and just to move them to another location, there's not much savings there at the end of the day to the taxpayer.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is partly a stock and flow issue. Admittedly, the potential consolidation may or may not cause some further expenditures in some sites, but that's an immediate cost, whereas operating the 20 sites we have is a year after year cost.
It sounds like the answer is a no, that you haven't actually done an assessment on what the extra costs will be. I'm just looking at a few quick hits of what this government has funded. $8.5 million for a cricket factory that ended up going bankrupt. That came directly from AAFC. That's your department. I'm looking at $8.2 million for gender-just low-carbon rice in Vietnam. Can you tell me what the ROI what the return on that investment to Canadian producers and Canadian taxpayers was? I'm hearing from seed groups that are saying that it's going to take 2 or 3 years to get back up to where Indian Head is at in terms of the research. We're going to lose 2 to 3 years on crop varieties. that they estimate, these are seed groups, these are grower groups, say the estimated loss on that loss of years is $400 million. We're looking at $8.2 million for gender-just low-carbon rice, $8.5 million to a cricket factory, $400 million in lost economic activity, all to save purportedly $3.8 million on a research farm. How does this make sense to taxpayers or farmers?
Okay, we'll go next to the Liberals for 6 minutes. MP Dandran.
No, we won't. We're gonna skip ahead. Just give me a moment, guys. Like, we can skip this. Who is this closed eye? Like, oh my goodness. Here we go. We've got Blaine Calkins up next. It's fun.
Canada has in the agriculture umbrella. It's situated in Lacombe, right next to the provincial crop research station and the headquarters of Agriculture Financial Services Corporation, which services basically all of the agricultural financing needs for Alberta producers in the entirety of the province. It is a hub of agriculture for sure. Land values in that area are north of $1.5 to $2 million per quarter section because it is some of the most productive land that Canada has to offer. The decision by the government to close that facility looks to be anything but a good idea. I can't find a single producer group, Western Crop Innovations, any producer group that thinks that shutting down the Lacombe Research and Development Centre is an intelligent idea, and that work, Mr. Hansen, can somehow continue on in Lethbridge or some other part, because the Lethbridge is prairie. This is parkland soil types, 2.5 feet of some of the richest black soil that Canada has to offer. Your department has got less than a 10% increase in budgets since 2015, and now you're being asked to have consequential cuts at the expense of producers, at the expense of agribusiness. And I'm supposed to believe that you're going to, what are you going to say to the producers and everybody in Central Alberta who relies on the research and development at that center that they should just accept this and lay down, or is this decision reversible? Is this decision reversible, or is it set in stone?
Thank you, Chair, for the question, and thanks to the member. We are not reconsidering this decision. I do want to emphasize that the work that's done in Lacombe, in terms of we're looking at moving some of the, and I know you're going to talk about the region. I understand that, so to Lethbridge and to Swift Current, swine research being consolidated in Sherbrooke. There is of course the abattoir that's also in Lacombe. We do believe that there are other people we can partner with at other universities and move some of this work elsewhere. I will say that we will also recognize
Mr.
that as a
Hansen,
research
this time is mine, and I'm going to continue to ask you a question then, because Lakeland College is partnering with the Lacombe Research and Development Centre. Were they consulted about losing their trials?
I cannot speak specifically to Lakeland. I don't know, Andrew, if you can, or if we'd have to.
I don't know.
We'd have to come back.
Okay. Did you talk to the provincial ag minister in Alberta about the trials and the shared research that's going on between the provincial research station and the federal research station on cereals?
So what I will say is that the process done under CER, like all elements of it, was advice that was conducted under the process of cabinet confidences. We were not actively consulting in advance. I will also say, though, that as we go forward, we'll be working with the industry, the province, and all these, and there are other options going forward that don't necessarily involve keeping a physical plant and presence in one place. There are still partnership routes and funding routes available beyond that.
You just upgraded the meats lab in Lacombe to a biosecurity level 2, and now you're closing it down. This looks like sloppy budget cutting to me, with no forward thinking about what the actual impacts will be. How are you going to replace biosecurity level 2 in Lacombe?
I think some of what we need to be looking at doing here are partnering with actual research institutions who may be in a position to do some of these activities. I know Guelph is one, but we'll look at others. Again, I want to emphasize that our actual own physical plant and operations are distinct from our ability to find other ways to fund things where we are helping to do science, but we are not necessarily the custodians of equipment and land.
Are you suggesting then that you're just going to dispose of the buildings because you can't afford to operate the buildings? Are you suggesting that the government of Canada should get rid of all, like the one you're sitting in right now? Like, it seems like a poor excuse to me, Mr. Hansen. Money is being spent right now to upgrade facilities for their scientific capability, not just general maintenance, and it's shut down. I don't understand the decision. Am I out of time, Chair?
10 seconds left.
Yeah. Anyway, the people, Mr. Goldstein, did you fly out to Lacombe and fire the 112 workers that were there in a 20-minute speech, refuse to take questions, and then leave? Because that's what I heard happened.
Yeah. You can follow up afterwards. We'll go to MP Harrison. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have to say it's a good day when everyone.
We're not going to Harrison. We're skipping over to the next round.
To that program, bringing it up to $700 million, which would be able to double the research budget and keep these research centers open and doing the good work that they're doing. But the Auditor General audited this program last year, and a couple of the comments that came from that audit, there was no strategy to meet the expected contributions of this program, poor results management, unreliable and incomplete results, performance targets were exaggerated, and yet you are throwing more good money after bad in a program that clearly doesn't work. And last year we talked to every single stakeholder. They said, which programs would you want to get rid of? And every single one, almost to a person, said OFCAF is one program that could be eliminated to ensure those resources went to programs that actually worked, like the research being done on the ground. Why are you choosing programs that clearly don't work and don't have any metrics to measure their success or unsuccessful, instead of, and you're sacrificing the good research that's being done on the ground? You're here.
Thank you for the question. So in terms of OFCAF, I will say, I mean, first of all, it is important to note that this is resources being, provided directly to producers to undertake beneficial management practices on their own farms, and I certainly will never contest what the member has heard from stakeholders. I will say that I do, on my own and with the minister, visited a number of producers where I've actually heard, that their appreciation for the support of OFCAF, including again things that are very useful to as in BMPs.
Yes, je vais continuer. J'ai une autre question.
I'm going to keep going. I have another question. Thank you, Deputy Minister. On Agriculture Day, I would like to thank all agricultural producers for putting food on the table. What we're studying today in Saint-Augustin-Léonard in...
I don't care. He's conservative. I don't like Jacques Gord. Just don't. I'm not a conservative. I'm a voter. I like Bexty, though. Here we go.
Declare land surplus to our needs. It goes through this process and could potentially, be used in other capacities. We can't really speculate on that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir. We're going to do 4 minutes, 4 minutes, and 2 minutes. So the Conservatives for 4 minutes.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just go back to what my colleague had mentioned earlier about the climate funding, On-Farm Climate Action Fund, OCAF. And you said there's $300 million of research. Well, there was just another $300 million announced on top of what was existing already, which is $700 million for a program that no one asked for, nobody wants, and doesn't work. That money could be much better spent on other programs that we have quantifiable data on. And I'll give you a good example of that. We've got the Indian Research Center, which was established in 1887. This is the home of zero-till. Zero-till has done arguably more for the climate than any other thing in agriculture that's ever been invented. Not only in Canada, it was developed in Canada, Western Canada, in Indian Head, where the main research was done, and it was exported all over the world. It is the main agriculture practice now in Australia, in Russia, Kazakhstan, Eastern Europe. This is the kind of research that we need. How on earth can you justify closing down research centers that provide this kind of research when you're giving $22 million for beans for women's empowerment? You're giving $8.5 million for a cricket factory. I've got a whole list of absolute liberal silliness right here. I can go through this one by one, the millions of dollars that no producer in Canada would be interested in funding. How on earth can you justify closing a research center that's done more for agriculture than probably anything else in Canada that's costing $3.8 million? How can you justify that?
Thank you, Chair. So I'll maybe note a couple just of number points, because off-CAF has come up. So just making the obvious point that the 700 and 300 is a bit, it's important to remember that the 300 is an annual spend. The 700 million for off-CAF, I believe, takes place over 8 years, so it's not a similar annual quantum. I honestly cannot speak to some of at least some of the programs that you mentioned. They're not AAFC programs. I will speak on the issue of Aspire.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Hansen, it's again our time, and time is brief, and so I'll get straight to the point. I would like to specifically ask for you to table the net savings, which includes ongoing maintenance costs until land and facilities are disposed. The net savings are what really matter, and I'm not sure that we fully appreciate how trivial the savings are going to be for the magnitude of the negative impact on the research opportunity. To go further, you mentioned the minor use pesticide program. It's been difficult, if not impossible, for minor use pesticide programs or products to get certified in Canada because of arbitrary requirements for duplicative testing. And, these products typically developed outside of Canada have such a small market that the producers foreign producers that produce the products can't justify the additional expense. And so farmers don't get access to these programs, they don't get access to these products, and they likely, usually, and traditionally have had an outsized impact. Can you please explain how this capacity is going to be saved? With the closing of the Scott Research Farm, this is on the block. What are farmers going to do?
30 seconds.
Minor use?
Yes, the minor use program is something that is highly important to the agriculture sector, particularly in the horticulture sector. We have maintained all of our personnel related to the minor use program. Yes, there are some testing sites at our location. We will be shifting that to another location to maintain that capacity, and we won't be reducing our capacity on the minor use program.
Thank you. We'll go to the Liberals for 4 minutes. MP Chatel.
Thank you very much.
To be here. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Minister Lightbound, Ms. Reza, and Mr. Urechi for coming and joining us today to talk about the amendments to the Canada Post Corp.
This is just a quick moment with our girl Kelly Block. She rocks. We don't get to show her enough on here. This OGO committee is off the charts. Let's go.
Corporation Act, among other things.
Joel
because we do
Lightbound
have
is a
some other questions for you today. I know that you were here in November, at which time Canada Post and PSPC yourselves were in conversations around another loan for Canada Post. At the time, you couldn't tell us very much because you were still in conversations. We understood that they were not in supplementary B estimates, which we were looking at them because the conversations were ongoing. But earlier, I think late last week, it was announced that a decision had been made to approve another loan to Canada Post. How will this funding be authorized?
Oui, le financement dont fait état, puis peut-être Lorenzo, si tu veux.
The financing, and Lorenzo, if you want to complement my answer. But a little bit over $1 billion was granted. It's a refundable loan to Canada Post that would allow Canada Post to continue its services, its essential services that Canadians need. Now, it's important to highlight that when we made the announcement in September to modernize and transform Canada Post, it was in recognition of the fact that though we have to support Canada Post as it's facing financial difficulties, It needs to transform itself because this cannot be a long-term solution for the federal government to support it in such a significant way. Lorenzo, I don't know if you'd like to add something there. Thank you, Minister.
So earlier last week, an order in council was posted that indicates that the Minister of Finance had authorized.
Your government voted it down. So let's set the record straight who really is obstructing their own legislation. It is not the Conservative Party of Canada. Shameful.
Paper Tiger Gary Edisongere is in the hot seat with Larry Brock. Let's check it out.
Minister, you took exception to my colleague Ms. Vienne's characterization of your communication with your tenant. You said essentially that it was taken out of context without allowing her to continue that line of questioning. So I'm going to correct the record and maybe refresh your memory because I got a transcript. You had a conversation with your tenant, and the tenant reminds you, Gary, but we're not the problem, Gary. Gary, I realize that. Gary, if I were to redo this from the beginning, like I'm picking up where it was left off, Gary, listen, I told you if I were to redo this from scratch, I would have a very different approach to this. Tenant, we're talking about Canada. It's a federal. It's not provincial. Gary, I get it. Quebec is in a different place than other parts of Canada, right? And this is something that very much a big, big, big deal for many of the Quebec electorate that voted for us, right? And that's one of the major things. I think I'm sure you've seen these articles where people said, this is one of the things we should not execute, like as a change from Trudeau's policies, but we've made the decision to go ahead. This was all political. Minister, this has got nothing to do with public safety. Law enforcement has consistently told you that from coast to coast to coast, and I would dare say probably in private discussions with the RCMP that they have told you that the problem facing Canadians and victims, particularly women, are not lawful gun holders, but those criminals, those thugs who have easy access to illegal stolen firearms that are pouring into our country. You knew that. You explained that to your tenant. So don't lecture my colleague for saying something out of context. This is something you said, and your points are well taken that this was a political maneuver. This is not going to make people safe. Now, if we're talking to a victim, a woman in particular who lived under a rock for the last 10 years and listened to your 5-minute opening statement, she would awaken and she would say, wow, am I ever blessed to live in one of the safest, if not the safest countries in the world. And Minister, statistically that does not bear that out. So do you have a comment about the fact that your rhetoric does not match the statistics that have been growing literally every single year since the Liberals took power in 2015? What are you going to tell those victims?
Let me first at the outset, Mr. Brock, tell you that when I indicated that I would have done it differently does not mean I will scrap the program. I would have designed it differently. It's a very different set of facts that you're putting forward. Having said that, look, there is a real issue of intimate partner violence in Canada. I'm not underplaying that. I recognize this. I've been to funerals. I've had people in my community who have died because of intimate partner violence. I continue to monitor and see the deep impact that intimate partner violence has in our society. And my responsibility, Mr. Brock, and our responsibility collectively is to ensure the safety and security of Canadians, not rhetoric. So essentially,
my time,
Mr.
Minister.
Brock, you had quite a bit of time.
Minister,
let me just finish.
Excuse me.
Okay?
I would say it was quite a long question. I'll give the Minister 15 seconds to finish.
Okay, so let's work together. And that is my point here. Let us work together. I think what you're misconstruing my opening statements, but you're not reflecting the other work that we're doing
Thank you,
in
Minister.
order to address
Minister, I'm moving on. Another theme that you brought up in response to Ms. Cody, that your government consistently brings up day after day after day, is accusing the Conservative Party of obstructing criminal, bail, and sentencing legislation. I don't know where you were at 1:30 this morning, but I was in this building passing Bill C-14. We sat for 9.5 consecutive hours to make this a priority. I then wanted to make a priority of Bill C-16 to get rid of the Jordan issue, to deal with mandatory minimum penalties, to strengthen offenses dealing with intimate partner violence, and every attempt that we brought motion after motion to deal with Bill C-16 as a priority, your government voted it down. So let's set the record straight who really is obstructing their own legislation. It is not the Conservative Party of Canada. You had 7.5 months to bring forward critical legislation to make a difference in the lives of intimate partner violent victims. And you waited literally to the last minute to introduce legislation, and now you're delaying it. Shameful.
That's your time.
Smash the like, hit subscribe, get your Canadian federal politics right here. Aaron, Canadian Looney.
Mr. Brock, to you for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, you were in the back of the room when your colleague was questioned by this committee. I had raised questions regarding your meetings with provincial and territorial counterparts. The question I'm going to put up front and then the justification to follow is what steps are you and your government taking to restore trust and confidence that is sadly lacking by intimate partner victims in this country, particularly women who feel that we don't have a justice system, we have a legal system. There's a lack of trust and confidence in policing. And when substantive charges on the 810 issue, when substantive charges, whether they be assault, whether they be threatening, whether they be mischief related of a domestic context, are simply withdrawn and with an urging to accept an 810 resolution with zero enforcement and zero consequences contributes to that lack of trust. Will you commit to ensuring national standards right across this province with your provincial and territorial attorney generals to ensure that their Crown policy manual sets out a basic direction as to handle domestic related cases and a direction with respect to under what circumstances?
All right, gang. So we're going to cross over to what's actually happening in Parliament right now. Yeah, this isn't partisan. Like, let's see if Carney can suck it up and do a good job at this. He probably can't. Here we go.
The House will now proceed to tributes in memory of the victims of tragic events in Tumbler Ridge. I now recognize the Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this morning, families in Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia, woke to a different world. Parents, grandparents, brothers, sisters, began this day as their first day on earth without someone they loved dearly. What happened has left our nation in shock and all of us in mourning. 9 people killed, more than 25 others injured, some still in hospital fighting for their lives. The investigation is ongoing, and we must allow law enforcement the time and space to do their work accordingly. Mr. Speaker, as this House knows, Tumbler Ridge is a community of some 2,400 people nestled in the foothills of the Rockies. It is one of the youngest towns in the great province of British Columbia. It's carved out of the wilderness in the 1980s, built on the promise of the resource economy, and by the determination of its residents. It's a town of miners, teachers, construction workers, families who have built their lives there, people who have always shown up for each other there. When wildfires raged, neighbors helped each other pack up and move out of harm's way. They checked in on seniors and those living alone. They made sure that no one was left behind. When the coal mine shut down, residents supported local businesses. They shared leads for jobs, and they lifted each other up. Mr. Speaker, Tumbler Ridge represents the very best of Canada, resilient, compassionate, and strong. Hier matin.
Yesterday morning, parents in Tumbler Ridge sent their children off to school, and some will never be able to hug their children again. These children and their teachers bore witness to unheard of cruelty. I want everyone to know this. Our entire country stands with you on behalf of all Canadians. I offer my prayers to the victims, to their families and friends, to all those who were injured, and to all those whose lives have been forever changed.
To express my profound gratitude to the first responders, the RCMP officers who entered immediately that school, not knowing what awaited them, to the paramedics and medical staff at the Tumbler Ridge Health Centre, to the teachers and the school staff who acted with extraordinary courage to protect the children in their care. In the darkest of moments, they showed the best of our country. I have spoken with Premier Eby to express my condolences and those of the Government of Canada. The Minister of Public Safety has been coordinating the federal response and is en route to Tumbler Ridge with the Premier and Minister Robertson. The MP, Bob Zimmer, is already there. Our officials are in close contact with their provincial and local counterparts to ensure that the community receives every support that we can provide now and in the weeks and months ahead. Mr. Speaker, we have been here before. École Polytechnique in Montreal, the Islamic Cultural Centre of Quebec City, La Loche, Saskatchewan, Humboldt, Saskatchewan, Potepic, Nova Scotia. Each time, it breaks us open. Each time, Canadians show who we are. Mr. Speaker, in the days ahead, there'll be important questions to ask, difficult conversations to have. We owe that to the victims and their families. But now, it's time for grieving and remembrance. Now is for the people of Tumbler Ridge and the Peace River region, for a community that is enduring the unimaginable. Il y a quelques instants, Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, a few moments ago, we held a moment of silence for the grieving community and families. For many of them today, silence is only too heavy. We will never be able to fully reconcile ourselves with the senseless violence that tore apart Tumbler Ridge yesterday. But we can seek comfort from each other, and we can take care of each other.
To those families who have lost loved ones, this House mourns with you. To those who are recovering from injuries, this House prays for you. To the students, the teachers, the parents, every resident of Tumbler Ridge, all of Canada stands with you. May the memories of those lost be a blessing. May this community, which has shown its resilience so many times before, once again find the strength to heal. And may this House prove worthy of what Tumbler Ridge has always been, by striving to make Canada a better, kinder, and safer place. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And thank you, Prime Minister, for your eloquent words. I'm sure words that you never wanted to deliver on the floor of this chamber. As fathers, we both know the feeling of sending our kids to school, hoping that they'll play and perform, laugh and learn, but most of all, come home to us, our loving arms at night. Sure, there's the odd skinned knee or sore belly when they get back, but that's usually the worst of our concerns. Yesterday, as we were tucking our kids in, I got a terrible phone call from Bob Zimmer, the Member of Parliament, who represents Tumbler Ridge, telling me that a shooting had occurred, and though not details were not yet well known, it was going to be bad. And those details have come in. Children who should have been thinking about homework and hockey were instead thrown into terror, grief, and unbearable uncertainty. 9 lives were stolen, 25 injured, 9 families devastated, an entire community in grief. That community is the best of Canada, a community of miners and loggers, hard-working people, hardy, strong, the kind of people who fight their own battles but never hesitate to help a neighbor in need. They're the backbone of this nation. Behind every number is a name, a child, a friend, a teacher, a neighbor, a family member, each with a story. For as the rabbi said, each life is its own universe. As a father, I can only imagine the phone call or visit that brought the news, the panic, the helplessness, the heartache that followed. No parent should ever have to fear that their child will not return home from school. No parent should ever bury their own child. En tant que père,
as a father, I can only imagine the call or visit to announce the news, the panic, the helplessness, the grief that followed. No parent should ever have to fear for their child's life at school, and no parent should ever have to bury their own child.
Families who've lost loved ones, there are no words that can comfort or verses that can console. All we have is the words of all members of this House that we are with you, and that in the memories you carry of your loved ones, they will live on in this world, even after they have passed into the next one. To the young people who were in that school, I've had indirect accounts shared with me, and I can't even imagine what you witnessed or the horrors that to which you have borne witness. I cannot comfort you or heal those wounds other than to say that the whole nation wraps its arms around you. To the people of Tumbler Ridge, Canadians across the land are thinking of you. The world is thinking of you. We know that in your small, tight-knit community, Grief spreads across families, workplaces, churches, and friend groups. And know that all of us stand with you. To the courageous police, paramedics, firefighters, and other first responders, to the staff who risk their lives to save their kids, thank you for your incredible courage. All of us owe you a permanent debt of gratitude. To the pastors, the priests, the clergy, the medical and the mental health professionals whose daunting task now is to bind up the wounds. May God be with you in your work. And on behalf of the official opposition, as I told the Prime Minister moments ago, we will be with you, with the provincial leaders, with local government, and we will do everything we can to support this community through this hardship. We all stand together. There is no partisanship on this day. And that includes the work that we give in support of our emergency first responders who will, of course, be traumatized, but will be carrying out continued efforts on behalf of the community. And to the RCMP, we will support you in your work as you gather up the facts and complete your investigation, and in good time, at the appropriate moment, make all the facts, indeed all the facts, known to Canadians. And we commit ourselves to being present for all those who have lost so much long after the limelight is gone, but while the grief remains. And so those who suffer today, we offer you our prayers, and for all those who do pray, I ask you to share a prayer with the wonderful people of this amazing town. As the great psalm said, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me, O Lord. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, today our thoughts are with the community of Tumbler Ridge in British Columbia. 9 children were torn away from the community and 25 more were injured. Our thoughts are with the victims of this nameless, senseless violence right in a secondary school. I hope you will allow me to make an exception today so that I can speak directly to the families and people in BC.
Which nothing can prepare with the parents from the hospital. With those who are divided between relief that they could bring a living child home and deep empathy for the families who could not. With all the students at Tumbler Ridge Secondary School whose lives have just been changed forever. With the children who will always be asking why? Why us? Why them and not me? Why here? Why? Their whys will never get an answer. With all the people who are waiting in dread to learn the names of the victims, knowing that in a community of under 2,400 people, the victims will inevitably be known to them, grandchildren, neighbors, friends. An entire village has lost its children. I would like to thank the police, care personnel, support workers, and all of those who have gathered in Tumbler Ridge to support its people. Thank you for being there today, and thank you to those who will remain there long after the flags are raised and life has resumed its course. On behalf of the Bloc Québécois, I would also like to offer my hand to the government It can count on our full cooperation if there is anything it needs to support those in mourning. Today, Quebec and British Columbia have never been closer. All Quebecers who have a child at school today are with British Columbia. All Quebecers today are remembering Polytechnique, the women who were taken from us, and the pain which will endure forever. Everyone is asking today, what kind of a world do we live in? Currently, we have not learned about a motive. But could there be any motive that would justify taking a weapon and aiming it at our children? Nothing will ever explain or justify such a horror. If you will allow it, Mr. Speaker, I will end on another note. Our hearts are with Tumbler Ridge, but they are also big enough to have room for another small community, Kitigan-Zibi, and the Anishinaabe Nation, which also lost 2 children today. 2 children whose lives were lost at the hands of their own father, who then proceeded to take his own. We would like to say to our brothers and sisters in the Anishinaabe Nation that they do not suffer alone. The Quebec Nation is with them. I'm sure it is the case for the Canadian Parliament as well. Mr. Speaker, today is a dark day. To get through this ordeal will require courage, fellowship, solidarity, and compassion. In great quantities and from all quarters. We will remember. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, we solemnly gather today in the shadow of a heartbreaking tragedy that has shaken our country. Our nation is in mourning. Notre pays.
Our nation is in mourning.
Yesterday, in Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia, 9 innocent lives were senselessly taken, and 25 people were injured in a horrific mass shooting. This violence unfolded at a school, a place meant to nurture and protect our children, deepening the shock and sorrow felt by all Canadians. Loved ones have been stolen, families have been shattered, and a small community will be changed forever. In a place where everyone knows one another, where neighbors are more like extended family, a loss like this reverberates through every home, every workplace, and every gathering. To the families who are mourning, we grieve with you. We stand behind you, and we hold you in our hearts. We know that no words can possibly fill the void you are experiencing. But we hope that you can feel the embrace of a nation that stands with you in your grief today, tomorrow, and in all the difficult days ahead. Aux familles.
To the families, we grieve with you, we stand behind you, and we hold you in our hearts. We know that no words can possibly fill the void you are experiencing. But we hope you can feel the embrace of a nation that stands with you in your grief, today, tomorrow, and in all the difficult days ahead.
Remember each of the victims, not as numbers in a headline, but as human beings whose lives were rich and meaningful. The light that they brought into this world and the potential they carried can never be replaced and will never be forgotten. To the injured, we send our deepest thoughts of healing and strength. To the students, friends, and teachers who suffered this assault, we are there for you. We express our profound gratitude to the educators who first faced this assault, the first responders who courageously rushed to the scene as it unfolded, and to all the healthcare workers who are caring for the injured. Your humanity and professionalism in the face of trauma remind us of the quiet heroism you display in our communities every single day. We thank the many people of Tumbler Ridge and across the region who have rushed to offer support for one another in this heartbreaking moment. In times like these, the strength of a community is truly revealed. In the face of such senseless tragedy and pain, we feel anger, confusion, and despair. We ask ourselves, how can such violence happen in our communities, in this country? These questions matter, and they deserve honest, thoughtful consideration. And there will be a time to answer them, but that time is not today. Today is a day when we cherish the victims and care for their families. Today is a day when we collectively grieve, comfort, and hold each other just a little more tightly. And today is a day when a nation comes together in solidarity and love. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And from the bottom of my heart, I thank the Prime Minister for his wise and moving words. I also thank the opposition leader for saying what is hard to say aloud.
Parents to imagine what the community of Tumbler Ridge is going through. Merci aussi le chef de bloc.
I also thank the Bloc Québécois leader who made the important remark that we are now united together. I also thank the Bloc leader for marking the tragedy that the Anishinaabe Nation is undergoing, Miigwech. And I thank the leader of the New Democratic Party, who, like me, is a member for BC.
Politicians will try to find words. I'll try not to. I want to send my love to our dear friend, the Member of Parliament for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies. This is the kind of thing none of us want to have happen in Canada, but to have happen in a place like Tumbler Ridge, so small. Everyone knows everyone, and I know that the Member of Parliament knows everyone, and it is a time that our hearts are broken. Maintenant, nous sommes pas seulement une...
Now, we are not just a nation, we are a united nation and a family.
Maintenant, nos cœurs sont brisés.
And now our hearts are broken.
Matthew 5:4, that blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. But that comfort may feel far, far away right now if you're in Tumbler Ridge. Know wherever you are that we're praying for the injured, the 12-year-old little girl fighting for her life in hospital. We will be with you this day, yes, and whether believers or not, we are all one in the human family, and we hold you all close. And if there's ever any opportunity that we can, as individual members of Parliament, do anything to alleviate the pain and the suffering and the grief of the people of Tumbler Ridge, we're with you today et toujours.
Today and always, Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for your beautiful expressions of support and love for the community of Tumbler Ridge. Today, in this House, we are united in our shock, in our sorrow, and in our thoughts for the people of Tumbler Ridge and the families and friends of who were impacted by this tragic violence.
Speak on behalf of all Canadians. We struggle to find the right words because there are none. Nothing we say here today can change the events of yesterday. We can only hope that our words will, in some small way, lessen the burden of sorrow of those who have lost their loved ones. Leur vie ainsi que celle
Their lives and the lives of all those in Tumbler Ridge have been changed forever. As members of Parliament, we understand what community means. With our own eyes, we have seen how powerful communities can be in the face of tragedy. And today, as your words have expressed, Canada is united into one community in support of the people of Tumbler Ridge.
The bravery of the first responders who answered the call within minutes and acted with courage and compassion. We recognize the resilience of communities to come together in support and empathy. We recognize the quiet heroes who respond to their neighbors and friends with kindness, caring, and strength this day and in the long days to come. For the people of Tumbler Ridge, we in this House are united and stand with you. Together in this House, we hold you in our hearts, and we will walk with you on your long journey of grief.
Finally, I would like to draw members' attention to the condolence book, which can be found just outside the doors of the House. I would invite you to take a moment to send a message to the families impacted by the tragedy in Tumbler Ridge. The Book of Condolences will remain until Tuesday, February 17th, which is also the last day when flags will be flown at half-mast. It will then be brought to...
Gang, that's so depressing. We're getting back into some kind of video because we've got lots to watch here. There's no shortage of videos. Like, not at all. What are we going to watch? What were we just watching? Here, we'll pick
Circumstances, will a charge be withdrawn in favor of a Section 810 charge, and what instructions you'll give for enforcement under 811?
Thank you for the question. I've got less than 1 minute, so I won't have time to answer the systemic trust preamble that you've put to me. On the specific question of provincial collaboration on 810 and violations under 811.
Jeffrey Rath is a Calgary area lawyer with a long career in constitutional and Indigenous rights law. In recent years, he's become one of the most prominent figures in the Western separatist movement in Alberta.
Mark Carney wants a 600% increase on the carbon tax in Alberta to decarbonize Alberta oil. We're done. Like, we can't handle this level of stupidity anymore.
Gang, what's up? Aaron here, Canadian Looney. Smash the like, hit subscribe, get your Canadian federal politics right here. We're going to get our fill of Alberta separatism and Jeff Rath, who seems to be the leader of the organization that is officially working with Americans to become the 51st state. Something is up. I lived in Alberta, can't blame an Albertan for questioning why you'd want to remain a part of Canada. Is going to the States the best option? I don't know. Let's find out more about Jeffrey Rath.
Talk to me about this movement. You need 178,000 signatures on this petition so it can reach the legislature and then potentially spur a referendum. Have I got that right?
Yeah, and we're crushing those targets. I mean, we need 12 to make the 178,000. We need approximately 12,000 signatures a week. I mean, everybody's seen the lineups going out into the dark Alberta January nights everywhere we go. I mean, we're well ahead of that curve. Our actual goal is in excess of 1 million signatures, so that we can demonstrate to the province of Alberta that that a majority of Albertans will in fact vote for independence on a going forward basis. So, that's what we're working forward on. Hey, while I've got you though, I want to send a shout out to Mark Carney. I want to thank him for all of his great work as the leading proponent of Alberta independence. Because without him opening his mouth on a daily basis and saying the silly things that he says, like trying to declare war on the United States under Article 5 and him going to Davos and insulting the United States the way that he did, and all of the asinine things that he does, like declaring the New World Order, etc. Every time he opens his mouth, another 100,000 Albertans come to our banner, including people from the Pacific Rim who do not want to be governed by people that are affiliated with Communist China. So I want to thank him very much for making Alberta independence possible. We're very grateful.
Can we go back to the numbers for a second, Jeffrey? You want to reach 1 million. Do you need 178,000 to get this into the ledge? 1 million is a lot. There's 5 million people in Alberta. Do you think you're going to reach that?
It's 62,500 signatures a week, and we think that we can get on track. We're kind of a little bit behind the curve on that right now, just a little bit, because we're having trouble getting getting canvassing badges out, and I'm not allowed to say who's at fault for that, but that's fine. But we're getting there. I mean, we're now probably close to 5,000 canvassers. We have a 50,000 canvasser goal. We want to, we're getting our permanent locations for signing set up across the province. And then once we get that done and have achieved that objective with volunteers manning every permanent station, then we want to have a 87 constituency door-to-door, door-knocking signature campaign across every constituency in the province. We want to hit every door in the province. We think we can do it. We just need enough canvassing badges. So we're working on it. But the other day, I mean, we had 2,400 people show up at West Edmonton Mall for canvassing training sessions. We had to run 8 sessions of 300 people each because we only had a room that would hold 300 people. People are excited. I mean, if you saw the footage from the event last night in Calgary, we had over 4,000 people there. They were excited. They were energized. We had probably close to 10,000 people go through the Big Four yesterday to sign the petition and go home. We're thrilled with how it's going. I mean, the support from our fellow Albertans is overwhelming, and we're very, 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 very energized by what's happening.
How many signatures do you have so far?
We're not going to say exactly. I'm going to tell you we're well ahead of the curve to make the 178, but
how come?
We're behind the curve to get to the million, and we're going to keep working pedal to the metal until we get there. And then we're going to have 2 huge events to celebrate the conclusion of this campaign. One at Rogers Place in Edmonton in early May, and one at the Saddle Dome in Calgary. And we're confident we'll be able to fill both arenas by the end of this campaign with energetic, excited Albertans that are looking forward to a free and independent Alberta.
What does Alberta separation actually look like?
Which way are you going? Alberta separatism, keep Canada united? I don't know. Under this federal government, it's very questionable. Smash a like, hit subscribe. Let's get back to the video.
Well, it looks like we're going to have no more income tax, no more GST, no more carbon tax. We're going to get rid of all federal regulations of the oil and gas industry. We don't have to worry about the tanker ban because of free and independent Alberta. We've already been promised by Scott Bessent publicly that they would welcome a pipeline through the United States to the Pacific Northwest so we can service Korea, Japan, and the Pacific Rim market with Alberta oil and gas. It's going to be the wealthiest, least taxed, and least regulated jurisdiction in North America. So we're going to have a booming economy. We'll have the highest GDP per capita of any country in the world. Our children will have a future again. Kids will be able to afford rent. They'll be able to buy their own home before they turn 25. It's going to be back to the way it should be. And we're looking forward to it. We're all very, very excited about no longer having to spend $15 billion a year to Quebec, another $10 billion a year to the Maritimes, God, even 500 million last year to Ontario, that big have-not province that, that Doug Ford supposedly is running so well that he needs to take money from Alberta taxpayers to subsidize what he's doing because they cheat their books by keeping Hydro 1 revenue off of their books, right? So we're looking forward to getting out from underneath all of that and being treated like a resource colony by the rest of Canada. So again, Mark Carney, keep up the great work. We're very grateful to you for driving Albertans to leave Canada, and we're looking forward to a very shiny and prosperous future.
Hi everyone, good morning. What a great day for Canada.
It's time for a change in this country, my friends. A real change.
Elbows out. Elbows up.
Had no interest in playing the puck, and he leaned into...
Look, I don't think one needs to respond to every comment. Look, Stephanie, I comply with the rules.
Conflicts of interest
What
you sought to
possible
avoid.
conflict would you have, Stephanie? Stephanie, I'm complying with the rules. I'm complying with the rules in advance. Point final.
It's very difficult to believe.
Look inside yourself, Rosemary.
Oh, yeah.
You should do exercises. That's important to our good health. And friends, tomorrow we are going to be visiting with a fisherman who will tell us about his very enjoyable hobby. Now, I would like to see you all through our magic mirror. Romper bumper, stomper boo, tell me, do. Magic mirror, please tell me today, did all of my friends have fun at play? I see all of my friends in Alberta. It's nice to see you. And I see Dan and Vivian. I see Marlon and Mona. I see Catherine and Harley. I see Anne and Elizabeth and Jane. I see Bert and Nicole, and I see you too. I hope to see you tomorrow, right here in Romper Room.